the viewers room doesn't even open until 11, so.
It doesn't.
No, and Ron Turner, if he had been able to come down, sent a message, would someone please just call me first thing on Sunday to remind me to show up at this thing? So it would have been great to have Ron here because he was involved not only in seminally in the underground movement, but involved with Comic-Con since the 70s. So, can everybody hear me?
Yes. Yeah. Perfect.
Okay. In the Comic-Con 40th anniversary hardcover book we did, I did a little survey in there of involvement of undergrounds at Comic-Con over the years, and I had a wonderful paragraph in there that I liked, so I'm going to read it to you. Underground comics laid the foundation for a number of today's comics' best features. They fostered the do-it-yourself mentality prevalent in comics publishing today, from mini comics to high-end art books, and also presented an anything-goes approach to topics and storytelling. The roots of today's self-publishing and small press movements, not to mention the ability to tell stories across a wide spectrum of genres and subject matter, were established by the groundbreaking underground cartoonists who forged the way in the late 60s and in the decade or so that followed. So that's my little summary of the influence of underground comics. But I want to start out, I'm going to see if Scott will tell us a little about the origins of underground comics. And
I'm a very shy, retiring guy now, and I was chewed out for being too mouthy last night, so I apologize publicly to Jackie and Wendy for being too aggressively fun. I'm sorry, I missed that. Let's see, underground comics, there's a really interesting.
Yep.
I hope that's interesting.
Can everybody turn off their cell phones, please?
I might be getting a call from the beyond.
It'll wait. They can leave a
It'll be
message.
Jack Jackson.
They're busy
Make sure you credit me.
downstairs.
I'm actually really interested in the origins of underground comics, and even more so the period right before that, where advertising was starting to get hip and greeting cards were starting to get hip, and there was a lot of stuff that I was attracted to that felt kind of like a precursor. Also stuff like Help Magazine running the college strips by Gilbert Shelton and drag cartoons, and that stuff really was a big deal because I believe that Feds and Heads was probably one of the first nationally distributed undergrounds. But anyway, back to the real origins. Didn't lay in San Francisco. There was a lot of guys in Chicago area that were doing stuff. People in New York, and they were mainly doing fanzines that were getting more and more into a permutation of the Mad and Kurtzman edited humor books. Guys like Jay Lynch and Skip Williamson and folks like that. In New York, the same thing was happening. Guys like Bobby London and people like that. But down in Texas is really the real center of it, I think, because guys like Fulbert Sturgeon, aka Frank Stack, and Gilbert Shelton, and Jack Jackson, and Joel Beck. I believe Joel Beck was down there. But Joel Beck was very important too. But I forget where he was at the time. Anybody remember?
No.
Oh well. Anyway, he was there too. And all these guys were kind of doing stuff mainly for their college humor books. That was a thing that we never had when I was in college, but we had underground comics, so I guess it's just as good. But guys were kind of stretching their legs doing comic stories and humor pieces as opposed to just a spot cartoon or a strip in the college paper. And, because these were the students essentially as their, as their own editors, and the school pretty much stuck as fronting the bill, so I guess that makes them the publisher, but there wasn't any real interference for the most part in that stuff. Guys, naturally, I mean, college students are going to be at the forefront of things, you know. In Austin, Texas, I mean, that's kind of the San Francisco of Texas. Still is, probably even more so now than it was then.